Hello and welcome to Piano Shack with me, Woody. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. Now, I bought this tube preamplifier a good 15, maybe even 20 years ago. And I used to play my Nord Electro 2 through this tube preamplifier and then into some PA loudspeakers when I was gigging. Now, the idea with these is that they give a lot more gain to whatever source you plug into them. It could be a microphone or some keyboards. But the thing is with this, since it's got a real vacuum tube, you can drive it quite hard and get a lot of saturation, which adds supposedly warmth and fatness to the sound. It's really good for warming up digital keyboards, just like my old Nord Electro. And I seem to remember it sounded pretty good back in the time. I used to use it, but it's been 15 years since I even plugged this in, and I'm curious to hear what it does for the Rhodes sounds in the MODX. We have a really nice sample library by Purgatory Creek of some Rhodes Clavinet, Wurlitzer. It's called the Vintage Keys sample library, so we'll get to try that one out as well. But we'll run it through this Tube Ultragain MIC100 by Behringer, pretty inexpensive thing, and see if it really does add anything to the sound or if it's just snake oil. Let's get started. This video is sponsored by you. Please visit my website to have your name or brand logo displayed here. Thank you so much for your support. Okay, let's do a quick unboxing of this. This is the Behringer. I think it was about 50 bucks, maybe it was 100 bucks. There are many other brands of tube preamps available. I think Art did one as well, I seem to remember. Just going to make sure we're in focus here. Okay, so behind this little grill is all the magic of this unit. We have a 12AX7, I think. Tube, they're a vacuum tube, the same kind of thing you find on the preamp stage of a guitar amplifier. Around the back we have inputs and outputs. You can feed a microphone into here or a line input via the jack plug there, and you have a balanced output and a normal jack plug output as well. So this makes a quite useful stage tool here. You can get a balanced output from your synthesizer, making this quite a nice little DI box as well. But the real purpose of one of these is to add gain to a sound, to boost up the volume of a source. Could it be whether it be a microphone or your keyboards? And the way this works then is that over on the left we have a input gain knob which adds, let's see, 60 dBs of gain, anything between 12 and 60 dBs of gain to the input signal here, and this is what we use to drive the tube circuitry quite hard and to get that lovely, supposedly, tube saturation. We'll find out later in the video. We have a couple of switches here which are fairly uninteresting. We can go through them. There is a pad. We have 48 volts if you want to power a microphone using phantom power there. We have some phase reverse and we have a limiter, which I won't be using here because I want to really overdrive the tube circuitry. And then over on the right, we have the output volume control from -infinity, so no signal at all the way up, and we get a further, let's see, 12 dBs of gain there. So there's about 70, if I'm doing my maths correctly, 72 dBs of gain boost from this tube preamp, but we're not using it for that purpose today. We will be using it mainly to add some color to the sound, some coloration, warmth and saturation. Does this really make the sound of a digital synth fatter? Okay, for these tests I am using a very nice sample library here for the MODX and for KONTAKT actually. It's distributed by Purgatory Creek and it's made by William aka Burning Bush over on the Keyboard Corner forums. He's done a great job here. He's sampled his own instruments. We have a Mark I Rhodes. You can see there's a Mark V Rhodes available here as well. We have, if we carry on through the live set, a Wurlitzer 200, and we have a 140B. So 200A, 140B. He's also sampled his clavinet. Really wonderful clavinet samples here actually. You can hear all of the detail as those little picks hit the strings. And we have a Yamaha CP70 which he has sampled. So all of these are loaded in under this Vintage Keys library here. That's what we'll be using for the test. And I have disabled all of the effects, the ones that I could disable easily anyway, the reverb and so on, so that we can really hear what effect it has when it goes through the tube preamp. Okay, let me just vamp around on this Mark I Rhodes and we'll capture a bassline recording. I love the oomph and the bark on those bass registers. Okay, let's move on to the Wurlitzer then, shall we? I'll skip over the 5 for now. We can do a detailed walkthrough of this library in another video if you want. So, the 200A Classic, let's try that. Let's take one of the clavinets. Okay, that'll do. Let's plug in the tube preamp and see what it does for us. Input is there. There's the input. So MODX into there. And then we'll take the output, run it into the Focusrite, which we have down here. There we go. So MODX output going into the tube preamp here. The output which is going into the Focusrite down here in the darkness. Okay, I've switched back to the Rhodes sound, or I will do now. There we go. Mark I 1975. Got the same level here. Let's increase here till we get some, put it halfway. Oh, there we go. Got to watch my levels now so we don't clip anything with these 72 dBs of gain that we have. And what we want to do is to push this as hard as we can so we really drive the tube and then adjust the output volume accordingly. So let's do that. You can hear already a bit of distortion. bit too much. So let's just try dialing it back until we get to the point where it's just about to distort. Okay, we'll need to match the volumes very carefully here in the post-processing so that we don't have a louder sound that you perceive as sounding better. So let me record a few performances here again, and then we'll A/B up them against each other later on in the video. Sloppy playing, just a little bit of grit I can hear and dirt coming through on the preamp, which sounds quite nice actually. Let's move to the next sound which we had, which was our 200 Classic. Let's really drive this and see what we get. It's not a great sounding distortion, is it? And finally, we had the good old clavinet. Far too much distortion there. I just realized I didn't record an explanation for the next segment. So what we're going to do now is play the sound of the MODX direct into the sound card and then back to back with the sound of the tube preamplifier with me playing a similar snippet of music. The grey clips, the greyish blue, are the MODX direct into the sound card. The pinky purpley clips are the sound of the tube preamplifier. And listen carefully now, you might be able to hear just a little bit of extra sparkle, a little bit of grit as well through the tube preamplifier, and you might also hear that there is some compression being added as we're overdriving the tube. You can also see that on the waveforms. try really pushing this thing to extremes and see what it sounds like, shall we, on the clavinet. Oh, interesting. Whoa, I like this. It's really bringing out some of the overtones and the grit that's in the original samples. I do like this. We've got a little bit more gain to add. Let's do that. Curious now. Let's go back to our Mark 1. It sounds like a guitar. Okay, so what did you think about that? Well, firstly, I'm sorry the playing was a little bit shoddy today, but I was more interested in just focusing on what this can do, so don't be too discouraged by my sloppy playing. Now, my thoughts on this then, after not touching this for about 15 years. The coloration, adding fatness and warmth to the sound. I'm not quite sure yet, but I have to listen more analytically to the recordings that we just captured there, because I only heard it live through the loudspeakers right now, and I haven't actually done any processing on what we've just captured. So I'll need to do that. But the warmth, the fatness and stuff, no, I'm not convinced about that, if it would add anything there. Certainly not in a mix or in a live situation with a band. But what I did enjoy more than I thought was the distortion on this. Once you crank it up, the overdrive and the distortion sounds I thought were really rather lovely, especially with that clavinet. Now, you could probably get similar effects or a similar result using the built-in digital effects on the MODX or whatever synthesizer you happen to be using. But yeah, it was kind of nice to hear what a real tube can do to the sound. I certainly enjoyed it, and I hope you did as well. Let me know in the comments. I'll see you again soon. That's all for today. See you later. Thanks very much for subscribing, watching, liking, and to all of my sponsors, of course. I'll see you again soon. Cheerio.